Cheide.
For this 3-minute rules, we are going to be looking at the combat phase, and in particular the rules for calculate combat result. All of these rules can be found on page 52 and 53 of the large 8th edition rulebook. Now that we have engaged in combat and have fought, this concludes what we call the combat round. At this point, it is time to determine who has won by looking at the total number of points that we have received in the combat. Once all of the models engaged in combat have fought, we are now ready to determine which group has won the combat. And we do that by adding up points for different bonuses based on different things that are occurring in the combat. And there are also a few extra bonuses that we will cover here. Wounds inflicted. After we have fought a combat, we have pulled our guys off that have been killed, and it's now time to count up how many points, how many wounds have been inflicted. In this case, we see that the dwarves have inflicted 2 wounds on these 2 guys, and the high elves have inflicted 3 wounds, 3 dwarves. Now let's say that one of these figurines is killed, and this figurine has more than 1 wound. Say it has 3 wounds total. Well, that would be removed, and that would count as a +3. So that would be 3, 4, 5 total points that go to the dwarves. With respect to this particular combat resolution, then we can say that the dwarves get 5 points and the high elves get 3. Second, 1 point of combat resolution is given to the unit that had charged into combat this turn. So in this case, the dwarves would get 1 additional point for charging the high elves. Third, if the unit has charged from a higher position on top of a hill down into a unit, it also gains +1 for the high ground. Fourth, were the unit to be attacking the other unit in the flank, either on the left or the right, they would receive a +1 combat result. So in this example, you see the dwarves are attacking the high elves on their right flank. Fifth, and similarly, if the unit is attacking the other unit in its rear, then that unit that is attacking in the rear gets a +2 combat resolution. So once again, the dwarves here are attacking the high elves on their rear, giving them a +2 combat resolution. Sixth, any unit that has a standard bearer in it also gets a +1 for that standard bearer. The high elf unit does not have a standard bearer, but the dwarves in fact do, so they would receive +1 bonus for their standard. Seventh, a unit also receives points for extra ranks. You gain +1 combat result for each extra rank with at least 5 models to a maximum of +3. So in this example, we see that the dwarves have 1, 2 ranks of 5 models. This one is incomplete here with only 2, so they would receive 2 points. The high elves have 1, 2, 3, 4, but they can only receive a maximum of 3, so there would be 3 points to 2 points for our ranks. One interesting exception to the extra ranks bonus is what is called disruption. A unit does not receive combat result points for extra ranks as long as it is disrupted. But what does disrupted mean? Well, a unit is disrupted if an enemy is attacking it in the flank or rear, and that enemy unit has 2 or more ranks of at least 5 models. So in this case, we see here that the high elves are being attacked on its left flank, and this unit has at least 2 ranks of 5 or more models. So we would say that the high elves are disrupted, and therefore they do not get their +3 rank bonus. But the dwarves still get their +2. So you can see here a massive advantage of attacking in the flank or the rear. In addition to these 7 common bonuses, there are also 2 uncommon bonuses. The first of these is Battle Standard. If the unit has the Battle Standard with it in its unit, so not a normal standard, but the special Battle Standard, then they receive +1. So in this case, the High Elves are carrying the Battle Standard in this rank right here, so they would receive an additional +1. The second bonus has to do with Overkill. There's a +1 combat result per excess wound caused in a challenge to a maximum of +5. Overkill applies when we have made a challenge. Let's say this high elf now comes and makes a challenge on this dwarf. They are both leaders in their unit. We'll say for this sake each of them have 2 wounds total. Now let's say that the dwarf doesn't do any wounds in the challenge, but the high elf comes back and actually does a total of 5 wounds. So 5 wounds would be enough to kill the dwarf. But in addition to that, there is overkill because he did 3 additional wounds above and beyond the 2. So that means the high elf would gain 3 points for the overkill. And the idea here is that if you are killing the leader of the opposing unit with such force and brutality that you have overkill wounds, that will affect the unit in a very detrimental way. To summarize now, we add together all of the bonuses, and the side with the highest number is declared the winner of this combat. And here once again were the bonuses. First, wounds inflicted, +1 for each wound that you have inflicted. Second, if you charged this round, you gain +1. Third, if you charged from the high ground on top of a hill, then you gain also +1. If you were attacking a unit in the flank, you gain +1. If you're attacking a unit in the rear, you gain +2. If you have a standard bearer, that is a +1. And you also gain a +1 for each extra rank with 5 or more models to a maximum of +3. Now this last one doesn't apply if your unit is disrupted, and that means it is being attacked in the flank or the rear by another unit with at least 2 ranks of 5 models. In addition, we have 2 uncommon bonuses. If the unit has the battle standard, that is a +1, and also any overkill in a challenge gives you a +1 up to additional 5 points. With all of those bonuses added up, we are now ready to see who the winner is, and the loser will have to take a break test. And with that, we come to the conclusion of this 3-minute rules on combat, calculating combat result. Thank you for joining us here today at Grey Army Gaming, where Grey can always play.